welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate. Not a good episode, not a good day. It's not even close to any of those things, quite honestly. But let's get into it. Again, your host, AtlasThugged. This is Offensively Accurate. I'm not sure why the chats keep resetting right at the beginning of the show, so I do apologize, but I do see a couple of them there. I'm going to start by addressing a few things, actually, because I do have a lot of new subscribers that have been coming in, and I kind of want to just make sure we set the record straight for just what's going on here. And we'll get into the overall Israel-Iran situation, the new rhetoric coming from Trump administration. I mean, now we're talking regime change in Iran, unironically, overtly out in the public. We're going to get into all of that. But the first thing, let it be known, I am a Christian nationalist. I do largely frame the majority of what we see as a battle for Christianity against the rest of everything else, whether that is Judaism, whether that is Islam, whether that's just evil in general, right? So let's frame that right here. But as it pertains to the war, not only am I pissed off. I mean, I'll contain it obviously on stream here, but I'm very angry that we got exactly what we got. But here's where I'll start. Israel dragged us into this war. This was never America's conflict. This was Israel's and Iran's conflict, not ours. And it never should have been ours. One of the first questions that I would actually pose to people, and I think it was great actually from Nick, I saw this from Nick, so I'm just going to reuse it and recycle it. If Kamala or Biden had started this war with Iran, do we not think that Republicans would have opposed it? The same exact war with the same exact rhetoric coming from Kamala or Joe Biden in a wheelchair. Would we not expect that Republicans would be against all of the military action that we're seeing right now? We also have to think about the instance and everything that is Project Esther and what it is doing. If you're unfamiliar with Project Esther, you can find it on my page. I did a documentary about it. Nick has plenty of good pieces about it. But the point to be made there, and he made this point on the Sean Kelly podcast. I think that's the right name, forgive me. Project Esther, and the majority of the places that we see the kind of pushback from war, whether it was Vietnam or any other kind of conflict, Vietnam's probably the easiest one to go to. The most vocal voices came from universities. It came from campuses. It came from a bunch of young adults foreseeing what their future would become if they were to follow suit in this war and what they would have to look forward to for the U.S. involving in military action. You pair that with Project Esther, and Project Esther's goal being set out to largely quell any kind of anti-Semitism, which is more loosely applied to any kind of criticism of Israel. So what we already have is a mechanism in place, as a New York Times investigative reporter said, at least 50% of Project Esther's objectives are already being, fought for and being pushed towards. And as Nick put it, it clears the way where you put anyone in the university, these protesters, these college kids are now in a position of fear, where say they might not get deported, but they might also get arrested for just being involved in some of these kind of protests. So basically clearing the way, largely, putting a big mechanism of intimidation out there, that if you were to vocally oppose this, we're going to call you anti-Semitic, we'll take away your scholarship, yada, 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 whatever other kind of mechanics they want to put in there. So that's one thing. The second thing is we're getting a lot of the most retarded slop garbage from people who are going, and we'll get to JD Vance, because JD Vance just spit in everyone's fucking face, and it's honestly one of the most things that really bothered me, but we'll get to that. Where everyone's saying, we don't want a war. It was just a strike. We're not pushing for war. We just dropped some bombs. Not even joking you, it's exactly what DC Drano tweeted earlier today. We'll get to that. The reality is the ball is no longer in our court. You can't bomb another country and expect that you have all the cards in your hands. As if you're the one who's going to sit here and say, actually, guys, guess what? We bombed them, and we're also going to say, it's all over. There's no war. You don't get to say that. And quite literally, Iran is already responding on multiple fronts. They're responding in the fact that they moved their uranium enrichment. We don't know if the uranium that was enriched, we even got rid of. They just moved it somewhere else. You have Iranian militia proxies, right? Like the Yemeni Houthis and other groups like that, mobilizing right now. Iraqi officials trying to dissuade military or militia action inside of Iraq against American U.S. bases. And so are we going to stay in this paradigm of like, well, it's not war, but they're going to retaliate, and then we'll retaliate to their retaliation, and then when they retaliate to the retaliation that we had to their retaliation, it's a fucking joke. We are about to enter into a hot conflict. Not about to enter. We are in one. And all you get from these conservatard, Charlie Kirk, DC Drano, bootlicking, they just are lying to you. They're lying to you. They are blatantly lying to you. They have led us here. And again, I cannot let it be understated. Donald Trump himself earlier posted on Truth Social that we are going for a regime change. Forgive me. He tweeted MIGA earlier today. MIGA. Make Iran great again. We have fully done a 180 from they can't have nukes to this is why we need to get their regime out, and decapitation strikes. You were lied to. Fell for it again award. Number 1 right here. And you know what? I can't even make fun of the audience because I fell for it too. And that's probably what I'm most pissed about. Is that you made me fucking fall for it again. Now, I know there are some people who are out there, like the Whitney Webbs, the High Impact Flixes, the other individuals like that, who largely ahead of time, and rightfully so, was warning against this way in advance. Wish I would have fucking listened. And I should have listened to Nick. And there are people in here, I'm sure, even in this chat, who are some of the ones who helped convince me of the practical effect of Trump, which I did agree with at the time. Now I sit here and I go, what a stupid fucking thought to have. And I can tell you what, hard to blame a lot of other people too. Because if you were only tangentially paying attention, everyone on the conservative side of the media, from Charlie Kirk to DC Drano to Laura Loomer to Tim Pool to anyone who might be halfway right-leaning, they said, oh, this is the only way. No new wars. No new wars candidate. Look at this America's mandate. America first. And what we have is the most disgusting puppet, probably the most charismatic puppet for Israel, mind you. Quite literally doing whatever he can possibly do to appease the interests of Israel, destroying this country in the process. And I can't let that understated. I apologize to anyone who listened to me through the period of, probably late September through the election, when I was saying I'm going to go ahead and vote for Trump. I apologize if you listened to me and took that advice. I apologize right now. Here's some other things. We are still in a proxy war with Russia via Ukraine. As much as America might want to pretend and act as if like, oh no, we're not really involved. Okay, well, it's a fucking proxy war, and we are involved. To this day, majority of individuals believe that we were the ones behind the Nord Stream pipeline being destroyed. We fund the conflict. We're also in a lesser-known proxy war with Russia and China in Africa over minerals, where if you dig deep enough, you can find spots where United States and French soldiers have been getting overthrown, being pushed out of regions. Never hear about it. And I only really even know about it because Dan McKnight talked about it. Because he pays attention to where the National Guard is going. And Dan McKnight goes, hold on, wait a minute, what the fuck? Why is 50% of the Arizona State National Guard in fucking Africa? And then we also have a carrier race in Taiwan. As China's continually deploying ships in the region, they're going close to like where Korea's at. Surrounding Taiwan, we've been getting this a little bit. Now, some of that could be saber rattling, but the reality is that we are now responding in kind too, and have been for some time. With frontal deployments of our own, with USS carriers coming out there too. And again, I think at the most base level of this too, American lives will be lost. American lives will be lost. More than likely will be individuals, probably in the Marines, Army, National Guard, Air Force, Navy. It will be military, men in uniform. And the blame falls on Israel. The blame falls on Trump. The blame falls on the administration who pushed us, lied to us, and instrumentationally convinced the American people this was in our interest. Lying every single step of the way. They literally copy and pasted the entire playbook from 2003, and we fucking fell for it again. We're going to get to JD's response on some of these pieces, because I'm telling you, I cannot believe what came out of his mouth earlier. And so truth be told, I'm much more of a fan of Donald Trump than I am JD Vance, if that tells you anything. The split of MAGA is being solidified historically right now. That is essentially where we are at. Now, and again, loosely, but I had always thought, for the most part, that it would happen to be on social conservative issues that largely would be the crux, would be Christianity. That's where I thought. And I thought it was going to be a bit slower. I thought it would just happen over time. People would kind of point out all the kind of weird takes that Ben Shapiro has, as well as just looking at the kind of general, friendliness to degeneracy. Turns out it won't. Turns out what's happening is it's because of Israel. Wow. It's because the majority of the people in MAGA didn't want to fucking go to war. Whether you want to say it's been co-opted, it's been redirected, the reality is those at the top of MAGA, the top brass, the Mark Levins, you have the Charlie Kirks, the Laurel Loomers, the Cat Turds, all have been instrumentational in lying through their fucking teeth, one step at a time, changing one letter, one little bit of the rhetoric at a time, and then 3 months later, all of a sudden we went from no new wars to you are cheering on regime change in a foreign country. They can never be trusted again. These people are sick. Some of them bootlickers, some of them grifters. I don't care. Whatever you want to make up your mind on it. That's who these people are. And you also have a bit with the nothing ever happens bros, right? You have the Bapsphere, you have the mainstream dissidents, the Cernoviches of the world, right? Cernovich literally can't make up his literal mind at all on any given day. He literally goes flip, flop, flip, flop, flip, flop. I mean, for one, you should never trust anybody who admits openly that they had relations with a trans individual, for one. That's an aside. This split is here, and this is what we have to deal with. So moving forward from here, though, the split in MAGA, this is really where a lot of the ground has to be gained. And this is where the actual meaningful fight will happen, especially for those who have the online Discord as well, too. But moving off of that one, Trump gave a fucking pathetic address last night. Did anybody catch that here in chat? Did anybody watch the 3.5-minute speech of the Four Stooges come on as he basically blesses Israel and then signs off for the night? It's so overtly disgusting. Couldn't even give us 30 minutes. Couldn't even walk us through even a little bit of the thought process behind what's going on. It was, I'm right, everyone's wrong, God bless Israel, fuck America, and he walked off. At least that's what I thought happened. I think that's what I felt like it happened. Now, what it means to be America first, I think could largely and only really be articulated by the great Mr. Fuentes. So I do have a video, and I would like to play that. Although I have a few other points I'd like to go to after that. I will visit chat. I see you guys are blowing up here in a little bit. I would like to go visit some. I'll grab some. But here's where I'm going to start, actually. This is one of the first things I'd like to go to. So this is from Kaiser Rev. I'll put it on screen here in just a second. Kaiser Rev is a really good clipper. This is about a 3-minute clip from Nick. And again, once you orient individuals, as in, I am a Christian nationalist, I do find the framing to be a battle of good versus evil, not the childish good guys versus bad guys. I'm talking a legitimate battle of good versus evil, biblical good versus biblical evil. And man, if you know what, if these individuals literally, I don't know, spent half a second reading their motherfucking Bibles and then trying to pair it to what the church fathers said, or having any kind of comprehensive idea of what the historical contexts were, the majority of what is going on right now as it pertains to Israel, the heresy of dispensationalism, as well as just the overall kind of weirdness that comes from the Jewish and the white kind of intra-demographic relationship, people would know what's going on. But they don't read their Bibles. They just listen to whatever their 810-pound pastors tell them in the Baptist services as they preach them all the good nothings into their ear and lead them straight to hell. But here's the video, and I'm going to put it on screen right now. This is what we have. This is what it means to be America first, and I agree wholeheartedly here with Nick, but here it is.
Everybody, to the young people, to the old people, it is what it is. To the young people, I'm talking now to the younger crowd. I'm talking to the teenagers. Pause. I'm talking to the 20-somethings. All of you young white men, and other men for that matter, all of you patriotic young men that love America and that love Jesus Christ, listen and listen well. We have been at war for a quarter of a century for Israel, for an antichrist state that wants Americans to die to pave the way for their new empire and their third temple. Listen and listen well. They have deceived us again. They deceived you. We've witnessed it in real time over the past year. This is what it means to be America first. Fighting this, being aware of this. That's the ultimate priority. For those people that are just getting into politics, you're a college Republican, you're inside the administration, you're in a congressional office, you're in state politics. If you are one of those young America first men, Trump sold you out to the Israel lobby. We're fighting a war that we should have never been involved in. George W. Bush wouldn't even bring us into this war. If you believe in the paleocons and Pat Buchanan, he's been talking about it for 35 years.
And that's the truth. The truth is the single most number one priority. If your priority, your goal, your dream is that America not be the cesspit of degeneracy woke BS filled with just, I mean, literally Disney and everyone else at the top level being graping everything that is good and biblical out of this nation, the singular target you must focus on is the ridiculous and incestuous relationship America has with Israel. Until we remove the parasite that is Israel, we will never get America back. And until people set their sights on that, we will not make a dent in the fucking sand. That is the number one problem we have to address. By far. By far. But here's the rest of the video.
This is how they operate. There is no substitute for victory. People said we would elect Trump and trust the plan. You can't trust the plan. You can't trust these people. They said we would elect Trump. It's better than Kamala. This isn't horseshoes. It doesn't matter how close you get if they're working for a foreign lobby. People said we'll elect Trump and then we'll fight that battle after the election. You see anybody fighting right now? You see Charlie Kirk fighting the president on this? He's doing tricks on it. He's doing reverse cowgirl with his shoes on, glazing the president right now. Whoa, he brilliantly let us out of this one. He led us right into it on behalf of...
You hear him? Charlie Kirk is doing tricks on it. Cowboy girl style with shoes on. And that is the truth. And it ain't just Charlie Kirk. You know, this is going to be a Loomer. This is Cant. This is Mark Levin. It's DC Drano. You could just go on and on and on. And every single one of them glazing. It's like you walked into a Krispy Kreme factory. All I see is glaze everywhere. And the moment somebody goes, hey, wait a minute, I'm a little bit suspect of this thing over here, they go, you traitor, not MAGA. How do you not love Israel? Forgive me, I don't want to yell because I don't know if it's going to be clipped or not. But this shit pissed me off so bad. It pisses me off so bad. Here's the rest of it.
Of Israel. People said we'd elect Trump and then we'd battle it out in the administration. We'd infiltrate. How'd that go for Dan Caldwell? Huh? Resigned in disgrace within months with that trusting round face of his. How did that go? Kurt Mills from American Conservative, he was being told right up until the fucking bombs dropped that everything was going according to plan and the posters and patriots are in control because he's got a buddy in the National Security Council. Well, guess what? He don't run the National Security Council. Israel does. So listen to this and listen well. If we are being outmaneuvered politically at every step of the way, as long as the Israelis are in control of the administration and pulling the levers of power, nothing matters. There's no substitute for victory.
Factual. And I apologize for not taking naked as a complete and unfettered word. You know, somebody in here earlier said, you gotta stop worshiping a 23-year-old man. Yeah, suck my fucking dick. Everyone in MAGA literally worships Donald Trump, dude. It is the most blatant purview of blind faith and trust into another human being. Miss me with the whole, like, worshiping a 23-year-old, dude. Have a whole country worshiping a guy who's a slave to Israel. God have mercy. And here's the thing, we'll move on. I'll get to Chet here in a second, too. And again, I'm trying not to be angry, but this stuff does. I have a daughter that I'm probably going to die before obviously she does. And I have to worry about what her future looks like, and what goodness might be graped from the earth, by the time that she grows up. The threat isn't over. The threat is not over. And anybody who paid it halfway attention, you have all these floods of reports supposedly, and it could be one of two things, right? You have reports that supposedly they moved their uranium enrichment and the centrifuges, some of them what they had, away. They had moved them. They took off months in advance because probably they had intelligence for it. Or the other possibility is that the strike wasn't good enough and we didn't see any kind of radioactive fallout because it didn't even get deep enough. So, my thought process is they probably did move the uranium well in advance, knowing they were going to get struck. And as they've already spoken to earlier today, they have said they are going to continue building their nuclear weapons program. They're going to keep going. So then, what do we do? Do we just continually just dropping bombs on them and say that we're not in a war as they try to continually build their program? And then we also have the issue of the fact that the foreign minister, can't even pronounce his name, went to Moscow to meet with Putin because they're going to try to mediate what they can do for countermeasures. And thus begins what I wouldn't call the domino effect, but I would say would be the obvious consequences to the decision of dropping, I believe, 8 bunker busters on Iran out of nowhere. Now, Iran and China, they'll argue, as well as Russia, they've all argued that we broke international law. Now, I could care less about international law. I think it's meaningless, to be honest. But they also argue it broke the UN Charter and a few other kind of UN agreements that we have there, too. So I'm sure we can expect to see some fallout there as well. And I do believe there's already been some Iranian proxy militias that we just broke our agreements with too. So now they are coming back into the fray. And it affects the whole region. And I cannot iterate enough that there is no defense for this. From the Charlie Kirks of the world to the Shapiros to the Laura Loomers, never again, they can't be trusted. I do have a clip here from Myron Gaines I would like to go to. This is Myron Gaines calling people out. But before I go to the Myron Gaines one, I would like to show the most ball-washing comment of all time from DC Drano. Now I'm going to blow it up a little bit. It's from Ryan Dawson. It says, indistinguishable from parody. DC Drano writes, Trump didn't declare war. He dropped some bombs, then called for peace. I'm telling you right now, if this is the kind of stuff you believe in, you like, and you agree with, you are not going to make it, and you are an enemy of mine. You are so retarded, it is weaponized. You lack such common sense, it is now being weaponized against me, the youth, and the future of this country. That's the point. And we really have to seriously start drawing lines. Who's our guys? Who's not our guys? Because I'm tired of the infiltration. But anyways, here's a Myron Gaines video. He calls him out. Now I didn't vet this before I even put it on screen. So if it goes crazy, it goes crazy. But here it is. And this is, again, Myron Gaines calling out some of the conservative influencers. But again, he can probably articulate it a bit better than I could. Let's let it rip.
Benny Johnson, all these guys, none of them are going to criticize Trump's horrible fucking decision to get involved in this conflict. I'm telling you guys that right fucking now. Daily Wire, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, none of them are going to criticize Trump's move here. And if they do, they're going to say, oh, we should have just stayed out. They're not going to go further. They're not going to identify the problem, which is what? The fucking Israeli lobby in America that runs our foreign policy. The most they'll say is we should have stayed out of it. But they're not going to go ahead and actually address the fucking problem. Watch over the next 24 hours, all the conservatives come in and fucking simp for Trump. Can't trust them on their foreign policy takes. And I hate to say that. I like Charlie Kirk. I like Matt Walsh. I like Benny Johnson. I like Crowder. I like Bongino. I like all these guys. But they're fucking clueless when it comes to foreign policy and who runs this fucking foreign policy. Actually, let me start that. They're not clueless. They knew who runs the foreign policy. They just won't tell you guys. That's the fucking difference. They just won't. I will. It's costing me dearly. It's costing me dearly. That's why this channel is fucking demonetized. That's why I'm banned off Meta. That's why I'm banned off Instagram. I've had 10 different Instagram accounts. They took my Facebook page from me. That was making me like $20,000, $30,000 a month. Gone like that. My Instagram page that I was using to run my my fitness business, to do everything else, gone just like that. My YouTube demonetized, gone just like that. So I can see why these conservatives never tell you guys the fucking truth when it comes to this shit. But oh well. Luckily, I'm a minimalist and it doesn't really matter to me about making a bunch of fucking money. As long as I can sustain operations and have my integrity, that's what I fucking care about. They will never silence me. They'll never stop me. These fucking dickheads, these bloodthirsty pieces of shit that want to go ahead and get us in wars and then pay our fucking conservative commentators to tell them to always have a pro-Israel stance, your turning points, your daily wires, etc. They will continue to lie to you guys to ensure that the gravy train never ends.
And that's one thing that I would like to see some legislation towards. And again, bravo for Myron Gaines calling him out. Listen to Myron Gaines over Charlie Kirk, just some advice from me at least. Maybe not on everything, but I tell you what, geopolitically, you're going to rather listen to Myron Gaines there. When it comes to this constant, I mean, we know people are paid to distribute influence. We know that Influenceable essentially organizes campaigns, gives talking points, and pays out for engagement, replies, likes, and talking points. And if you don't know this, well, you need to find someone else to listen to. I would like to see legislation pushed. I don't know what the format would have to be, but just an idea. I would like to see legislation pushed where, just like on with gambling ads, you have to disclose on X, right, that you were, forgive me, paid to post that. They have to disclose it. The same thing should be true with political opinions. It should be known that you were paid by AIPAC to post this thing. It should be known that you were paid by Jewish Voices for America to post that thing. It should be known that you were paid by Somalia to post that thing. I don't care what country it is, but you should have to disclose that. And why I haven't seen anything move towards that, but we have disclosure rules around gambling ads on X. Like, I can tell you one thing that'll be a lot more impertinent to get done over gambling ads. That is for sure. But let's see here. I know I've actually had so many chats, I'm actually not going to be able to scroll up too far on some of these, but I will go ahead and rip a couple of these off.
JBWN says, "This looks like the jar opener's chat last night. I'm turning it off."
Yeah, right. I'm not going to get into any of that, though, at this time. But that's kind of the point, right? Which is, you know, once you get to a certain size, you have so many people in the comment section, like, you're not all going to agree. I mean, like, I would expect disagreement, right? It would be odd if, like, I were to say something and then a million chats fly through and they all go, wow, I completely agree. You shouldn't be agreeing with me entirely on everything. You should have, like, different nuances. It's just the way that it happens. Let me find another one here.
Kevin Cortez says, born too early to deploy to the Middle East. Born too late to deploy in the Middle East. Born just in time to deploy in the Middle East.
I wish it wasn't, I wish that wasn't true. You know what? I'll tell you what, first time in my life, I am glad I am a boomer. No, I'm not actually a boomer, but I turned 30 this year. So I think that puts me in the second wave of draft, or maybe in the third wave. But definitely pray for me because my brother's in the first wave. My middle brother, that is. Looks like we had people getting timed out for being insane. Thank you, House, for doing that, cleaning it up. I do appreciate my moderators, Donnie and House. Be careful. If you do go over the line, they will nip you in the ass like a chihuahua. Let's see if I can find one more. We'll go back, okay? There we go.
Titan says, careful, brother. To a degree, your reaction is what they want.
Yeah. You know, and Titans are actually right. Letting it affect you to that level, you know, at least be controlled, right? I can be pissed and still be, you know, controlled anger, right? Not that I'm screaming at the top of my lungs or coming off as if I am insane. That's for sure. You know, there's good ways to do this, and I do appreciate all the reminders. Again, I'm a Christian more than anything. So obviously, yes, if I'm out of line, please obviously pull me back, rebuke me for being outside of it. I will take it in stride. But to move on to a couple other points here, and I just have two more before I really start like to breaking down to some more of the topical news that we have. For those who might not be aware, I interviewed Dan McKnight with Worrell from America First TV on the Jaw Openers podcast last night. Before the interview was over, we got the breaking news, and I saw it in chat from, again, our house AI in here, that we struck Iran. And I cannot explain to you the feeling that overcame me as a human being to watch a grown man fight back tears because he knows the level of consequences in the irreparable damage that decision will do for the future of not only our country, but everyone involved here. The military to citizens to 20 years down the line, right? What kind of effects? What knew Osama bin Laden, right? And more than likely, we're working our way up to having a issue or a kind of conflict with Pakistan. And it was because he knew the level. He knew the level of what the consequences were. And it was rough. I got to be honest, it was rough. And not that I have any kind of negative opinion of Dan doing that at all. To me, it was rough because I felt it too. I could just feel it in the room. The energy had just kind of been, sucked out of it. But I do think there is another point, and one that I would really like to go to bat with too. And something that Nick had brought up as well on his emergency stream last night, but one that must be addressed. And it is JD Vance. Now, I had even caught this, but didn't make much of it before we had the strikes happen, which was that there was a story that JD Vance had basically had a very intense call with officials about not getting involved in Israel's war, or better yet, not getting drug into Israel's war. And then a couple hours later, we strike Iran. And I do agree with Nick Fuentes' assessment on this, which is largely to say that was essentially a planted story. One that doesn't really matter much right now, but one that matters quite a bit when we're going into 2028 with the expectation that Donald Trump, because of what he's doing now, will forever have shattered the highest point he will ever have in terms of approval rating or a strength of base. It will continue to decline all the way until the end of his presidency. He will never get that back. So this kind of story being planted, if you will, allows people to go back as we get closer to 2028, when the heir apparent JD Vance is going to run. And they can go back and he can say, well, look, I was trying to be super vocal towards Trump. I never wanted to go to war with Iran. He will now have that benefit of the doubt because of the story that was dropped literally a couple hours just before we struck Iran. And it looks more than likely like we are going to get a JD Vance and Marco Rubio ticket. I could possibly see a JD Vance and a Pete Hegseth ticket. Less likely, I more so imagine it will be JD Rubio ticket. And again, Rubio, also somebody who's, not a stranger to Miriam Adelson. And the thing that really blew me away, obviously, this is JD Vance here positioning himself, in my belief, to recoup the fallout of the Republican Party as kind of a Band-Aid to recover as we kind of leave the old original making of MAGA and it evolves into wherever JD Vance is more than likely going to take it. Forgive me. That it makes no sense because, as Nick points out, and something that I caught as well too, when JD was selected, one of the first things, as vice president, I should say, or the vice president nominee, one of the first things that he said, and I quote, and I have it here, we need to do something with Iran. Now, there's more context to that too, but it was one of the first things he said as soon as he got the nomination. So, kind of missed me with the whole, we don't need to be involved with Iran or being drug in by Israel, because and I guess I shouldn't say years ago, but about a year ago, you basically said the complete opposite. So, not buying it. And here's the thing, and people might be unfamiliar as well with the kind of Palantir and Peter Thiel and PayPal Mafia connections that JD Vance has, which is largely why I fear him, and especially when you compare that with the clause about AI in the centralization for 10 straight years that not even a state, not even let alone a state, not even a local zoning law is allowed to override for 10 straight years. That's buried in the big, beautiful bill. It's like on page 238. I do fear that it will largely be used to allow Palantir to do whatever the hell it wants for 10 straight years, and no one's allowed to do anything against it for oversight, preventative, anything. And we already see the fact that I believe I think during Trump's first 100 days, Palantir ended up getting like $200 million in contracts from the Department of Defense. And now they're sitting at almost $1 billion in Department of Defense contracts because they are positioning themselves to be the front runner producer for AI technology systems paired with the clause that's coming with the BBB, which is the big, beautiful bill, which will basically give them a free lane to do whatever they want for 10 years. And no state, no local jurisdiction has any ability or any recourse to do anything. That'll be buried inside of the bill. And loosely, and one thing I wanted to actually verify too, because I had just learned this even as I was going through it, because I had done a little expose on JD Vance. Actually, you can find it on my page. It's called Nick Fuentes Exposes JD Vance, and I kind of run through the timeline of Peter Thiel's connection with JD's kind of change up, Peter Thiel being the reason why JD was able to meet with Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump endorsing him, and then now grabbing him as his VP. Obviously it's a very, very convoluted kind of makeup there. But apparently, JD Vance had a meeting in 2017, back in 2017, to discuss a presidential run. He invited a David Frum and a few other individuals, and David Frum was this old, neocon speechwriter for George Bush. He invites David Frum, potentially Peter Thiel. I don't think we have any kind of verification that Thiel was there, but he invites these guys in because this is a year after Donald Trump wins the presidency, because their expectation was that Trump was going to lose the presidency. And because if Trump would lose the presidency, JD Vance positioned as a never-Trumper, he would be the one in 2020 that he would have came about and would have said, oh, hey, no, look, I will be the one that will save the Republican Party. But when Donald Trump won in 2016, it threw a wrench in all of their plans, and they basically had to refigure out how are they going to postulate themselves? How are we now going to position ourselves for that JD Vance will be able to be president one day? And they had to basically scrap all of their messaging, drop all the never Trumper stuff, and switch over and become a full-blown, I'm in Trump's camp. I'm on Trump's team. At least that's the way I see it. And so if you want to look that up, I'm pretty sure it's The Atlantic that reported it. It might have to be in an archived article. But look up 2017 meeting J.D. Vance, David Frum, and tell me that does not stick out to you that 5 years before he ever even became a senator, he was planning a run to be president in this country with the backing of Silicon Valley. Peter Thiel and the rest of the individuals who are behind Palantir, Gotham Systems. We build profiles. We think about pre-crime. We quelled political dissent in Europe. Miss me with all of that. I want literally no part of it. That essentially sums up for me a broad list of some of the points I wanted to get through, just in response to what we had going on from yesterday. Just to kind of clear the air and let me empty my brain out of everything that I kind of foresee and have absorbed in the last 24 hours. And now we are going to move a bit more to some of the topical news that we have, which is aggressive to say the least. And so I think I need to start here. Trump goes full mask off. A couple hours ago, before I even went live, so maybe not everybody's even seen it, Trump completely went mask off. Trump went mask off so bad, he tried reframing MAGA into MIGA to call for regime change. I cannot even believe what I'm about to put on screen here for you. Look at this. This is not America first, folks. I'll forgive me, the super chat still on screen. But here's what Donald Trump wrote. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MAGA. Fell for it again award. Stamp it on my forehead, guys. We're going to war. And it's so tone deaf. This is everything that they said wasn't happening. It's not regime change. They just can't have nukes. Trump said it for 10 years. They can't have nukes. Was he saying that we need to have a decapitation strike and we need to have a top down changing? Hey, Charlie, it's been a little quiet, man. Jack Posobiec, have you posted in 5 hours? You have anything to say, Jack Posobiec? Anybody? Anybody at all? Laura? Or Larry, I guess I should say. What is supposed to be my reaction to this? Besides, we were effing lied to. We were lied to. Obviously saying MAGA for make Iran great again. He's trying to, again, pull the wool over people's eyes by using all this MAGA rhetoric that Benny Johnson's going to be, slopping all over. Man. Say it ain't so, man. Say it ain't so. I did see some super chats came in, guys. I do appreciate it. Hopefully I can grab them still. The chat was moving super fast. I'm so very sorry, Titan, because yours is gone. I did see yours, but Titan, thank you very much for the donation. He's still on screen, actually, which is funny. But thank you very much, brother. I did see that you did give the donation. Let me grab this other one before it disappears. No, it did. No, it's right here. Let me go to this one.
Squadri has donated $9.99 and says many Republicans won't accept that we got conned by Trump for the vote. Vance will likely be even worse. Not a groiper, but Fuentes really called this a year ago.
Yes. For one, thank you very much for your donation. I appreciate it greatly. It is. I appreciate it so much. But yes, they won't. They'll refuse it. It will probably be a slow death of MAGA as we begin to roll closer to 2028. Maybe we'll see some kind of weird stories about Trump, even further decrease the sentiment, the public kind of inspiration of him. And this is something that I hear quite often, and I see it often, right? Not a groiper, but Fuentes is right about this. I wouldn't consider myself a groiper, but I'm probably damn near as close as you can get to it, to be honest with you. But he was spot on, man. And I'm not going to anybody else to listen to about geopolitics for the foreseeable future until Nick gets something wrong. I ain't going to Charlie Kirk. I ain't going to Shapiro. I'm not going to the Daily Wire. I'm not going to, or I guess I should say the Israeli Wire. I'm not going to anyone else at all. At all. Couldn't convince me. Could not lie to me one more time. And I'm telling you right now, I think everyone else needs to make that vow too. Find the people who lied to you to get you to this point, to vote for them. Unsubscribe from them. Unfollow them. Will Smith, Men in Black, find somebody else to go listen to. There's plenty of other smaller creators you can go find that are not going to be blowing hot air up your ass about what is really going on in the world. Just be a piece of advice for me. From me to you guys. But yes, that is where we are. We are in the now regime change is good, right? How many times have conservatives talk about the left-wing process to go from, no, it's not happening. Okay, maybe it happens sometimes, but it's not that big of a deal. Why are you obsessed about it? To, oh, it is happening and it's good. Guess what? Trump just did that to you guys. Republican media just did that to you guys. Trump administration just did that to you guys. And me too. I can't say you guys. Forgive me. That's out of line. They got me too. That would be 100% honest. It got me too. I guess I just wanted to deeply believe that if there was even in the slightest bit of chance that maybe in my lifetime we would have a candidate that wasn't entirely controlled. Maybe I'm naive for having that belief, but I just so deeply wanted it to be true. I so deeply wanted to hope that for the first time in our lives, we have a candidate that at the very least, we would get a practical incrementalist president. Someone who on the margins would be good, but pushing us in the right direction. But you know what I can't do? I can't feed my daughter with women not in men's sports. I can't feed my daughter with the news of bunker busters in Iran. I can't feed my daughter with that. Nobody can. And when you look at some of the downstream consequences that we're getting, is, now we're in talks, which as far as I've seen, they've not committed to it, but one of the signatories has agreed to it, which is closing the Strait of Hormuz. Or Hormuz, I might be saying it wrong. Which has a big portion of the global oil supply runs through there. Which even in our Discord, people making points to it, which is if you need to go fill up gas, you might want to do it right now before the speculators push the price beyond $5 a gallon. Now, I will say there's conflicting information. Don't know who to believe on that, to be honest with you, because I'm seeing some people are saying it's like it'll hurt China more than it'll hurt the U.S. Then I'm hearing some reports from China saying it's not going to hurt them that bad. It will hurt them definitely, but not as bad as like what the American media is making it out to be. But, just in case you know that you can't afford $7 gas, or maybe you have an hour-long commute, your prices have just, on the speculative end, have just increased. I do thank you very much for that. That's the most beautiful chat I've ever seen in my life.
House Leotardo says, "This is a Christian nationalist channel. It is not a mega channel."
For anybody who didn't hear it in the back, there it is. That is exactly what this channel is. Thank you, House. And, to make matters worse, just a little bit. And I do want to go to these, some of these super chats, guys. I want to make sure I get it to them before they fall off the screen. I'll have to make my thing bigger so they don't fall off the chat. This is what we got. It's funny. I'm trying to find a good and the bad. Because the anticipation is that Trump is going to literally tank in the polls. Kamala Harris makes an announcement. She's going to consider a run for California state governor. The band is back in town, boys. Kamala said, Donald Trump did what? I might have a chance again. I might have a chance again. Oh my gosh. But it could be an idea of, maybe this is more of a sign that, Gavin Newsom more than likely will be for sure running, for president, which I would imagine he's definitely going to be in the primaries. Who knows how far he'll actually go. But I want to make sure I get some of these chats here, guys. I do appreciate it very much. Thank you, guys.
Tix Bomber has donated $5 and says, in celebration of getting my power and internet back.
Hey, glad you got your power and internet back. That's awesome. It was like 5 days ago, like right at the very beginning of the stream on jar openers. Like I was about ready to lay in, like me and War about to like start arguing about Israel and Iran. And the moment I went to go say something, I was like, doop. And my power got cut out. I was like, you know who did this? They're from Israel. That's who took my internet down. They control the weather. Joking, in case anybody wants to clip that out of context, joking. I did see another one. Where did it go?
Toffer has donated $2.00 and says if you read Esther, you will know what's next.
Yeah, Toffer. I made a short documentary on Project Esther. I basically gathered as much as I possibly could, threw it all together, and tried to explain it best I could from front to back. But you are 100% correct. Very, very, very correct. And so, I believe that was the last super chat, right, guys? I believe so. Okay. I do agree with Ronnie. Vance can never be president. I just saw that. But here's something else that's funny, too. And I'm going to clean up some of these tabs here, guys, so my computer doesn't go up in a pile of steam. Iran is shitposting Donald Trump. That's where we're at. Iran is shitposting Trump. Let me get the chat off screen. I apologize, guys. This is from the Daily Iran Military. So, like, I'm sure it's like an American account, I'd imagine, but maybe just giving updates and obviously aligned. But I did think it was funny. How much for that check? You have to attack Iran for that one. I don't know. It gets more believable every day that they have footage of Donald Trump doing something to little children somewhere. Somebody, somewhere, somehow. I didn't want to believe it at first. But man, you go from the Elon moment to the Iran strike to it's plausible now. It wasn't previously. A little plausible now, though. That's for sure. Now, we have another bit here, too. We have a State Department spokesperson, and from the Trump team, Tammy Bruce. No joke, I kid you not. This is from Suleiman Ahmed. She said that America is the greatest country on earth next to Israel. You can't make it up. Take a listen. It's only 30 seconds long. Listen to this. Listen, everyone's got to listen to this.
The pride of being able to be here and do work that facilitates making things better for people. And in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. It is.
Do you see how she slips it in there? Yeah. In the Christian country that I live in, you get thrown in jail for saying something like that. We'll throw you in jail. Straight to jail, dude. You said what about America? Jail. First Amendment? What? No. Anything anti-Christian? Immediately right to jail. Immediately right to jail. I kid, but really that's how it should be. And that just caught me off guard. I'll let the rest of it play. I doubt she says anything meaningful, though.
It's an honor to be able to make a difference and to be able to speak in this regard with an administration that I love so much and that I feel genuinely represented by. It's a real honor.
It's a real honor. Dude, get out of my country. Get out of my country. Okay. And, we're just going to move along here because there's a couple of these topical ones that, it's just chaos, man. It's all chaos right now. But the Spectator Index, this is from Chief Trumpster. I'm sure a couple of you guys are probably familiar with Chief Trumpster. The Spectator Index tweeted earlier today that the New York Times reports that U.S. officials have detected signs that Iran-backed militias are preparing to attack U.S. bases in Iraq and possibly Syria. This was an update. We did get an update from that. And hopefully I didn't move past it, however. No, I got it right here. Put it on screen. This was another update we got from AF Post. And this is from Eric Schmidt from 6:15 p.m. today. American military and intelligence officials have detected signs that Iran-backed militias are preparing to attack U.S. bases in Iraq and possibly Syria, and in retaliation for the U.S. strikes in Iran. Continuing, they say, but so far the groups have held off and Iraqi officials are working hard to dissuade militia action. already there is another country involved that is not Israel, Iran, and America, not Russia, not China, it's Iraq. And it's because of a geometrical, physical locale reasoning, because they're the country right next to Iraq, that when these militias begin mobilizing and moving, they are going to be affected by them, because now you have militia groups moving through your country that are geared and aimed to, that have war intent. So again, it's already happening. And are we to expect that every single one of them are going to completely hold off? Not a single one will try to, take aim at a U.S. base, like the Erbil base in there in Iraq? Or one of the other permanent bases that we have over there in Syria? I imagine Iraqi officials will not hold them off for very long. And it is unfortunate too, because this is kind of the argument from Scott Horton and the one that I was making as well, which is when you have anywhere from 30 to 50,000 individuals who are in the Middle East, American citizen soldiers, right now, that means the moment you strike, all of those people are well within range. You don't have to be boots on the ground for American military members in uniform to be snuffed off this earth in some kind of strike, whether it's at the base or whether it's some other kind of, IED or some kind of, even, anything. And they've already given a, word. They've already spoken to that they've warned that American citizens are all targets. I wish I had the verbatim post of that from what they had, but maybe even I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but largely that's what they said. They said every American citizen is now a legitimate target. We're not at war, guys. Come on. They said we're not at war. Don't you trust the plan? It's 7D chess, dude. You're just not seeing it. Trump's got this thing going on. He's got it. He's doing it. It's just pathetic. Iranian state media also put out a post. They are saying that a night is coming, the likes of which we have not seen before. I don't put much stock into that because they did say that the other day and then literally nothing happened. So don't really know how much to make of that, to be honest with you. And you also have the Iran's Atomic Energy Agency says that the nuclear sites will be swiftly rebuilt and activity will continue. There's been multiple reports of this, actually. Let me get it on screen here. There have been multiple reports of this. And the unfortunate aspect here is what happens when they do. And they do commit to it. And they have said out loud, this is what they're doing. We are doing this. What happens? Do we strike them again? Right? Yes. Yes. That's the easiest implication, is that this has now become a forever war. They're going to do whatever they can, and now they have no reason to not build the bomb because they know that we are the length of what we are willing to do. It's unfortunate. I want to make sure the chat's still doing okay. I apologize. Making sure I'm testing my computer right now. It looks like, seeing how much I can do with the chat. We don't blow up on me. I do appreciate everybody for being here. Obviously, smash the like button if you enjoy what you're seeing. This is who I am. So welcome if you're meeting for the first time. I am Nick Fuentes Light. I'm older, slower, probably not as smart, but I am just as vocal and I have a better voice. I will say that. But here we are. This is where we are. And before I could start getting into some of the other things here that I do have in terms of topical news, I would like to visit some chats. I would like to go back to that because I was trying to make sure it would catch up to what you guys were typing, which it did finally. So here we go. Let me find something here. If I can find anything.
Ronnie Choppa says, I told people a while ago that you're going to be very surprised when you find out who the real villains are, and it's coming to pass. People need to see for themselves.
Earlier today, I don't know if people appreciate this or not, but earlier today, there's a viral video from like a black content creator, and he's making a video about Israel's relationship with not only just the United States, but the CIA, the intelligence agencies. And what better point do you know something has hit critical mass than when you start to see, the Black community start making content about it, because they understand what's going on there too. Now it's left the political realm. Now it's making its way into pop culture. The game is up. Now, unsure how that's going to really kind of take form if they can continually lie to people over and over again, and individuals can continually, for whatever reason, convince themselves that, Trump's got this miraculous plan and that we're not owned by Israel and that the United States is clearly the ones in charge and we're doing everything in America's interests. And that's exactly why we don't have any Epstein files. It's exactly why the mass deportations aren't happening. That's exactly why the economy has not really done much in terms of recovering. That's why exactly we have, I could keep going. Let me find another one here.
Datter AF Danevang says, Trump also shits on countries who have been great allies to the US for decades. As a Dane, I'm pissed he actually threatened to annex Greenland, which has been Danish territory for 1,000 years.
The crazy thing with that was I saw a bunch of people initially have the support there. And when I looked into it, started seeing some articles that were not American media sources, I saw a lot of individuals go ahead and say, no, and then I looked into it and it was conflicted. It was like some people were kind of okay with it. It looked like some people, the majority of people didn't want that to happen. And I really didn't look into too much of it too, because I thought it was not even a real story. I think the whole thing with Greenland was one of those things to largely get the narrative or to, change over the news cycle and push it into a different direction. That was kind of my thought process with it. Because I thought it was just no way that the MAGA base will be supportive of annexing Greenland and also owning Canada. I thought that was just a lot of hoopla to probably just steer the news cycle and avoid probably other topics that were out there. It's been a minute since that story was around, though. I have to look into it a bit. And then it looks like there's some guy named Junior Coltrane in the chat, and he's acting as Jewish as I've ever seen anyone. It is hard to beat that one guy. What was his name? Hebrew Hammer, who was in here? I'm I don't know. If he says something intelligent, I might click on it at some point. Let's see here. Let me find.
The Iceman says, we don't have a right to hand over our country to these people. It's not our to give, it's future generations.
We don't have a right to hand over our country to these people. It's not our to give, it's future generations. Oh, well, here's the thing. What America, we might as well just call it Amerisrael. It's not even America anymore. This is nothing what the founding fathers made. I would encourage people, if you were to resurrect the founding fathers, they would start slaughtering people, I would imagine. That would just be, they'd be we have to take it back. We have to revolt one more time. And I also don't think we're going to be able to ever vote our way out of this, to be quite honest with you.
Shep says, we should all remember how blessed we are to be in a country that is not being bombed right now. God bless.
That is true. I was doing the math the other day, and I believe you have a less than 2% chance to be born as an American. Less than 2% chance to be born as an American. I think the biggest chance is the highest country would be China, I believe, and then India. That's the one and the two. But yeah, it's a less than a 2% chance to being born into America if you hold for the national population over the global population. So everyone count their blessings. You are a very, very small group of people who are absolutely blessed to be, even as controlled as America is, you're still blessed to be here. In the ashes of what the 250 years ago, the last generation of great men were willing to stand up for. And there are great men in the generations that came after, but much less so. Let me go to another one here, guys.
No says, I was trying to start a cargo van business with my dad because he lost his job, but these oil prices are gonna FCK us LOL.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's brutal. I wish you best of luck, though. Maybe you guys can pull it off and maybe reel in some, fill up your gas tanks now and try to take advantage of it, to be honest. That sucks, man. I wish you guys the best. I really hope that this doesn't get this opportunity for you and your dad don't get, bottomed out because America had to go bomb a foreign country halfway around the world. That sucks, man. And God bless to you, dude. I really hope that you guys can make that work.
Donnie Brooks says, we gave him plenty of chances to say something intelligent. He just couldn't come up with anything.
That's funny.
House Leotardo says, America is not the empire, it's not the 750 bases around the world in 80 countries, it's not the dollar, it's not the banking system, these things were mostly forced upon us. America is its ethnos.
Right. What's left of it? I believe we are quickly approaching the lower half of 60%, white majority in here, right? We are so far removed from the originating European ancestry of what, was the lifeblood of this nation. And I think the saddest thing to me too is just this, what a failure the Department of Education has been. I think the thing I see the most from people who even halfway agree with me on political stuff is they go, we weren't a Christian nation. What are you talking about? I can't even argue with someone who's that retarded. I'm not going to do it. The moment you say that, I know that if I engage with you, I'm dumber than you are. I am an idiot for engaging with such a retard. And again, this is part of the thing too. I mean, this goes to, and I'll go to a tangent issue here. This is part of the thing that, I think Joel Whitman spoke, at length a little bit with, in terms of like Andrew Tate, in terms of like masculinity, where Christianity is at, and its effeminization, which is, what if Christianity wasn't so brutally cucked that instead of Andrew Tate wielding Islam, he would have picked Christianity, and maybe he would be a bastion for Christianity instead of Islam. But to go to the length to say the effeminization of Christianity is what's leading so many young men, the youth, who look at how gay and weak and wrong and fake and retarded the average, evangelical is, and what they represent, that they can't, it's too unnatural. It's like they have to become an artifice. They have to literally castrate themselves to walk into that perverted form of the religion. That if Christianity was probably not in such a cucked, place, you probably wouldn't have so many of these kind of pagan apes coming out of nowhere and saying, look, we need to bring back the Vikings and believe in the pantheon. And it's like, man, we dominated you guys a long time ago. It's wild that you came back. And part of me thinks there too, that's another problem we're going to have to deal with, which is it's hard to become a Christian nationalist when most people's idea of just Christian in general is largely just like fog machines, fat camel toes, and 400-pound women pastors telling people and telling men how they should behave. What 21-year-olds signing up for that? I mean, hell, they'd probably go fight Iranians and go sign up for that. Are you serious? And that is part of a problem. And it's a tangential problem too, but it is an optic problem. And luckily we do have people like Joel Webben. We do have people like Stone Choir, and other individuals who are in in that space who are doing the most, to push against that kind of stuff, and good on them for it. There were a couple other things I did want to get to. I'm trying to reorient myself. I kind of walked away from where I was at on my outline. There's a weird article I couldn't verify, guys, because I'm not paying the Rolling Stone for it. I didn't see anything other kind of update that spoke to this, but this was from the Rolling Stone, but I did see it from AF Post. So the AF Post writes that Trump's attack on Iranian nuclear facilities was based on no intel that Iran sought to develop nuclear weapons. Now, it's not been community noted at all, but the article is from the Rolling Stone, and if you go to it, you can't read beyond the first couple of lines, but that's what they write here. No imminent threat. There is no intel. Trump's attacks on Iran were based on vibes, sources say. But again, do you trust the mainstream media? Not really. But, another grain of sand in the heap of the shit pile. Just to give you an idea there. And one of the other things that we did get to, right, which is the kind of the terror cells. Iran's going to attack at any minute, guys. Where are they at? And forgive me, I might have hit my mic. Homeland Security, I think not once but twice today, has issued warnings of potential attacks inside the United States. This is something that we have been pre-programmed for a long time, especially as it pertains to the wide open border on the southern border. Charlie Kirk has been one of those who have been, pushing or saying, or giving reports to that at least, which is that a fear, months ago was that with the wide open border, not only is it allowing just anybody to come in and cartels, but what does that mean for foreign intelligence operations, foreign governments that are, oppositional to us, right? Like Chinese nationals, Russian spies, you can go down the line. But they were kind of priming us for this belief that the border was so wide open. And I think they tracked it with some kind of U.S. Army report about missing explosives or explosives that had been seen traveling through Mexico. Their belief was that there's probably Iranian terror cells that have embedded themselves during the 2020 to 2024 era when the border was wide open to be able to better kind of, settle in the United States so that when something like what we just had happen, they'd be able to engage and interact from, maybe not a defensible position, but, to be able to be on the American soil to make a strike. At least that's what's been being proposed to us. And Charlie Kirk, again, you can go back months ago and find him talking about that was one of his fears. And many people are pointing to that now too. But again, this is from AF Post, and they write that Homeland Security has issued a national terrorism advisory, warning of potential attacks inside the U.S. by an Iranian extremist motivated by anti-Semitic or anti-Israel sentiment. Look at this. And is that not the winner? Is that not the winner? And this is, and props to Ron Paul. This is something that he speaks about pretty often, which is we never talk about the fact that like our actual actions, like, and what we've done as a country. I'm starting to be a little of the belief, like Corey Muller pointed out, God spared Trump from the assassination attempt so that he could use Trump to deliver judgment on America. It's kind of like where my head's at, to be honest. But this idea that the United States is always the good. We're always in the good. We're never in the wrong. Everything we've ever done has always been the right decision 100% of the time is such a childlike mentality of like viewing what happens in reality that when you see this and you go, Iranian extremists motivated by anti-Semitic or anti-Israel sentiment, can you imagine if Iran bombed us and then Iran ran newspapers and said, hey, listen, you got to be careful. There's going to be a bunch of extremists from America who are going to be motivated by, they're going to be motivated by anti-Islamic sentiments. That's why it has nothing to do with the fact that we just dropped some of the biggest bombs of all time on them. No, it's because they hate Jews. It's like, I mean, come on, like who buys this? Who seriously sits there and reads that and goes, yes, wow, that's wild. Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sure there are people out there. But it's so obvious, right? And that's kind of the point, that it's getting so obvious. Nick Fuentes has over 60,000 people on Rumble because it's so obvious. I mean, I'm waiting to the point that next thing you know, Nick Fuentes is going to be carrying 100,000 people live every single night. What are they going to say then? They're all bots. Maybe they use Palantir to start socially profiling anybody who's ever watched a Nick Fuentes stream. Next thing you know, you're getting arrested and missing person. And then we have to contend with the reality that also, what if we didn't even destroy Bordeaux? Which is what we got reports of too, as well. And again, from AF Post, I don't see a community note here. This is from 4:30 p.m. today. A senior U.S. official acknowledged that while Bordeaux sustained damage in yesterday's attack, it wasn't destroyed by any means. According to the official, 12, not 8, bunker-busting bombs could not destroy the site. The U.S. and Israel still have no assessment of how much damage was taken. And they're basically just kind of like guessing from satellite images. Like, well, it looks like we kind of cave in their one entrance there. Now, I read earlier too that I saw a report that Iran was so well informed that the United States is going to drop the bombs that not only did they evacuate their uranium that was being enriched and some of the centrifuges to be able to facilitate that, they also packed the tunnels that lead into the main entrance with dirt so it would better absorb the impact of the bunker busters. I mean, isn't that something? I mean, just to show you like the level of the intelligence and the way that Iran is able to respond against it, just shows you the nature of the animal that we are dealing with. This is not Syria. This is not Iraq. This is a competent country. Now, while it might not be Russia or China, it is still going to put up a exponentially stronger level of a fight than what we see with the other places. And then you have to contend with this reality. And this is the one that I think most concerns me, especially as it pertains to Pakistan. But this is what we have. Well, if it will load, forgive me. The Kremlin, this is a New York Post article. The Kremlin warns that other nations are ready to give Iran nukes. Dangerous escalation has begun. Now, I read into this article a little bit. And so what we get is it's the deputy head of Russian Security Council. I think his name is Dmitry Medvedev. He emphasized that these attacks will not stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Will not. He made it a point to emphasize that the U.S. strikes has not and will not deter Iran from pursuing in acquiring nuclear weapons at this point now. And then, so the Iranian foreign minister, his name's Abbas Araghchi. He was in Moscow. He's meeting with Putin. I believe the article they're talking about countermeasures. The article did go into detail, and I'll tell you what I can see right now, at least from what I foresee. I don't think China is going to get involved whatsoever. Maybe only financially. Because as more as I read up some of the recent kind of, relationship drama between China and Iran, they're not on the best of terms right now. But I can see Russia getting involved. Not that I think it would be troops, but with Russia being the biggest possessor of a nuclear armaments, right? Even more so than the United States, at least from some of the figures I've seen, and who knows who's lying. But at least that's what's reported. I can see Moscow funneling munitions to Pakistan or directly to Iran, or maybe Moscow pays Pakistan to deliver munitions to Iran to attach to a ballistic missile. I can see that happening. I do think that's in the cards. I think not even just Iran developing one, but Iran just possessing one from somebody else and saying, we just circumvented the whole creation of it. We just fucking have one. What are you going to do now? And maybe that would be the strongest deterrent to stop attacks. Because if they now claim that they do have a weapon and you don't know where it's located, now you cannot have the confidence that you used to have when you're striking them all over. Because now you need to know, what are you going to do? Where do we go from there? Do you just continually just striking at the different sites you think they have it in hopes that you don't have a Chernobyl 2.0 moment of nuclear fallout? The IAEA has already warned. They've already had experts. Please don't strike the sites. There'll be nuclear fallout. Especially, he was saying, the expert, if your belief in your intelligence is that they do have some of this, these nuclear armaments here, or they do have this uranium here, you have to avoid striking the sites. You have to be careful. Because I can tell you what would drag it out further would be you absolutely destroy a large region and you make it a Chernobyl, right? 2.0, radioactive, the fallout that happens from that, the civilians that get hurt from that, the kind of environmental fallout that happens from that. Maybe it goes downstream, maybe it affects a river, maybe it affects the sea, maybe certain mountains, maybe certain kind of, even animals just all of a sudden go bottom up. Ecosystem gets flipped on its head. So many things can happen with that. That could lead to very strong consequences. Strong fallout that would then affect the other regions. This is not in a vacuum. Nothing is ever in a vacuum. So many things are globalized and interconnected that you can't ever think that when you do something to one country, it's in a vacuum and no one else is getting involved. No one else would have interest aligned with that or against it or oppositional to that. And largely what they've been arguing, Russia as well as China, arguing that, again, that the United States, we are in violation of international law. We broke UN Charter And they're also calling for UN Security Council resolutions against us. I'm seeing nothing, absolutely nothing that is speaking to we're not going to be going to war, or at least we're not going to inevitably be pulled into a full on the ground, boots on the ground regime change operation. Because we're not going to be able to we're not going to have a regime change in Iran without putting boots on the ground. Not happening. That is not happening. And that seems to be the direction we're going. And it's unfortunate, man. Yeah. I love falling for it again, guys. Love being lied to. Love feeling like an absolute effing idiot. For daring to have any kind of belief or faith. And that really kind of, brings me to at least the topical news, some of the updates or developments that I saw that I was at least able to verify and think about to give a statement to. So we have a bit more, some other drama, but some things that I did want to point to as well. I would like to move to the disapproval rate of Donald Trump, because I do think that will be something that we'll be talking about in the coming weeks in the news cycle. But with that, I would like to go to some chats, actually. Let me see if I can grab some here, guys. Let me find one here.
Tix Bomber says, "Hey man. We had to strike. America planned on building 100,000 nuclear weapons over the next 10 YRS.
Yeah, we had to.
Greg Watson says, "Iran doesn't hate Jews. They hate the terrorist nation of Israel."
Listen, you gotta tell that to Mark Levin and Laura Loomer. Listen, I believe you. but I ain't me making accusations. That was funny. That was a good one. I appreciate that.
Carsazilla says, "It's all about removing the central bank in Iran. It's not owned by the Rothschilds. That in Greater Israel Ben Burns Canal Plan."
Yeah, we have what's his name? You have like this puppet, right? The exile, right? The crown prince, whatever his name is. I can't think of what his name is. And he's like this big Israel puppet just waiting to be used, waiting for a hand to come reaching up his anus and control him and make Iran a puppet state. It's sad. It's sad. And again, I encourage anybody to please go listen to Whitney Webb. Please go read even a few pages of One Nation Under Blackmail. Begin to absorb some of the information that's in there. Yeah, Ben Gurion, right? People who aren't familiar with Ben Gurion.
Ben Gurion Canal.
Yeah, Ben Gurion, right, was this obsessed individual, and largely was one of the, I think he might have even been the first, but largely Ben Gurion was I believe he would have been prime minister there in Israel, who was obsessed with Israel possessing nukes. And I believe, I think even Fuentes said this, I couldn't verify it, but I believe he even said, like, to the point of this guy was having nervous breakdowns because he was so obsessed. He was so, because of obviously the Holocaust and World War II, right? Never again, that this guy was having literal frantic psychotic breaks because he just wanted to own and possess nukes so bad. If that tells you anything about where Israel's at. Looks like Dark Cell said...
The Dark Soul says, "We should talk AtlasThugged."
Yeah, it looks like Donnie told you where to go in the Discord. Hopefully, oh my gosh, I never put that in the description of the video. I can grab it here in a second. Actually, let me make sure I will. I'd love to. My X handle is on screen. Actually, that'd be easier to do while I'm live. X or just comment a handle or somewhere. I'll reach out to you. I tried getting a hold of the Hood Conservative, but he ignored my chat. Actually, very sad, very depressed. Let me do one more. Let me grab one more.
Shep has donated $1.99 and says thoughts on the hate Candace Owens is getting.
Thank you very much for your donation, Shep. It was inevitable, predictable. Really no different than the hate she's been getting for the last 2 years, right? Since her split because of the Crisis King fallout, right? She was pushed out because she worked for a Jewish organization that hates Jesus and doesn't want any forward-facing Christian to speak truth to that. So she was bounced out for that. It's the same, she's on the same principles now. She doesn't think it's in the not only just American interest, but even further than that, she doesn't think it's in the average Christian's interest to support and fund a genocide, especially the ethnic cleansing that is happening in Gaza. Yeah, of course they hate her. She stands against all the evil they wish to perpetuate onto society. It's predictable. It's the same thing with Ian Carroll. It's the same thing with pretty much anybody are saying like that, right? Hodge twins I'd throw in there too, but they're a bit more on the grifty side. I saw that they were like speaking out of both sides of their mouth. They had like a post on Facebook that was like, wow, Trump's so good for striking. And it may have been automated, but it's obviously different from what they had on X. And you have the cat turds as well, and they're just in it for Xbox, man. They'll just say whatever it would take to get you to click, click, engage, make them ad revenue off a platform, off of, rage, irritation. That's what they're there for. It's the whole purpose. But yeah, Candace Owens is, doing good work. I kind of loosely classify her as the red pill ramp. I think, I would put Candace Owens and Ian Carroll in that exclusively. I think maybe even a little bit of Dave Smith, but he really doesn't go the full length. Dave Smith is more closely aligned with like Scott Horton and where Dan McKnight is at. I call him the red pill ramp, right? This Candace Owens, it's Ian Carroll. They kind of touch on all of these issues like, Epstein and Diddy and like the music industry and like who is really behind Disney. And they cover all these kind of issues that are not even, sometimes are directly involved, but sometimes they are loosely or directly affected. And it's like, no matter what story you get there, it's like you'll hear a whisper of Epstein somewhere in the background. It's like, well, you remember that thing about Diddy Epstein? And then it was like, well, what did they do over there with like the shrimp when they had that stuff going on? Israel. It's good for a purpose, right? It's good for getting people who are not willing to go the full distance of, I guess what would you say, going full Nick Fuentes, full sin there, but are willing and are open-minded enough to hear out some of these bit more of these kind of conspiratorial ideas, I guess, if you will. And some of those things are a little bit odd too. Like even Ian Carroll did a thing about like the shrimping industry, right? And talking about like the human rights violations that go into that. And then, the next thing you know, 40 minutes later, you're talking about shrimp. And then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, and Diddy did this. You're like, whoa, we're talking about shrimp. Like they're pretty good at it, to be honest, actually. Like I think Ian Carroll is pretty funny. I think somebody said in the chat a couple of days ago or a couple streams ago, he's got a really bad case of cop face because he's got that mustache. I thought that was pretty funny. He does a little bit there, actually, right? I have a bad case of being bald, but that is what it is. But okay, going to where I wanted to go to, which is the Americans actually disapproving of Trump's attack. This is another post again from AF Post. This is from 3:16 p.m. today. Now they write that more Americans, 46%, disapprove of Trump's attack on Iran's nuclear sites than do approve, which is at 35%. So 46% disapprove, 35% do approve. Now, it does say that a majority of Republicans, 68% of them, support the attack, and only a 13% minority of Republicans oppose it. And now, if you look at this little image here, which actually, let me do this. It's easier to look at like this. You can see here, strongly or somewhat approve, U.S. adult, 35%, the majority, no. Then you go by party ID, obviously, against, majority independents, even majority of Democrats against it. And what's crazy to hear too, like I'm not even sure what this means, what this little chart is there as well. But you have all this conflicting reporting, right? Like, and I think that's what I really wanted to highlight with this, is the fact that there's all of these other sites coming out that say the polling data is the opposite of that. They're saying like, actually, no, Trump support's going up. Trump's approval ratings going up. What? Nobody believes that. Nobody buys that. And there were even like CNN and a few other news publications were like running with polls that it was like 83% of people support, Trump striking Iran. It's like, did you take that poll in Israel? No. And then you can even see it, right? The nonstop ratios on X, right? I mean, at least it's clear on the digital side of things that there is no support, at least for the kind of, what would you call that? The interactive side of the online, the dissident right, the dissident groups. Like, I don't know, man. There's so much of it's just lies. And I'm so tired of being lied to. I'm sure you guys are too, right? Like, isn't it all so tiring? Isn't it all so tiring? I am curious though. I did want to get a gauge. I would do a poll, but it would take a hot minute. Also, thank you, Donnie. Donnie did put the Discord link in the chat. It is somewhere. Yeah, I'll highlight it here.
Donnie Brooks says, link.
Link. One thing I wanted to ask, because I was curious, because I haven't looked at my actual analytics. So feel free to chat it away. Who is your guys' favorite creator? For all in the chat, right? Who is your guys' favorite creator? Fuentes, Carol, Candace Owens. I'm super curious, like where this current iteration of people who are watching this right now, where your guys' thoughts are. Who do you like listening to? And even if they're not like a major pundit, right? Like even if it's some other random no-name YouTuber, like let me know. Because I would like to refresh my palette of like who I am like getting information from. I'm probably going to start unfollowing and blocking en masse. A lot of these DC Drano and James Lindsay and, all these other kind of retarded liberal, Israeli pro bloodlusting neocon individuals. The first name I see is Asmongold. I like Asmongold too. That's funny. That is very funny. Yeah, Asmongold's pretty good, man. Can't lie about that. And no, I do appreciate it, Ronnie. No, don't say me. Don't lie. Don't lie. You got to let me know who your actual favorite creator is. I would like to at some point get up there, to be real with you. But I do appreciate that. And so one of the other things in House, our very own House AI pointed this out too. I did see it earlier as well, but the talking points have been handed down. Looks like the influence campaign has begun en masse. And I'm going to highlight this actually. It's a pretty good screenshot. This is from Sovereign Bra. And one thing I would like to highlight too, Sovereign Bra is one of my favorite follows on X. He doesn't have really much of a digital footprint really anywhere else. But he is essentially very strongly aligned with where Fuentes is at, and he speaks a lot more to the kind of Christian aspect of what's going on. Really good account, so if you don't follow him, definitely do. He grew quite a bit. I believe because he had a bunch of appearances on the Whatever podcast, and I think that's kind of how he got his name out there in the first place. But he's pretty spot on with a lot of things. But this is what he writes. And we'll go to the screenshot. I'm keeping it off screen for now. This is what he writes. This is what a psychological operation looks like. Recognize it for what it is. You are watching a psychological operation play out in real time to manufacture consensus for more war in the Middle East. This is the playbook. Step 1, silence dissent and opposition. Step 2, gaslight people into thinking they're traitors and disloyal to the president if they don't want another war. Okay, both of those achieved, right? Step 1, Project Esther. Step 2, happening right now from all of these ridiculous conservatard pundits. Step 3, completely ignore the fact that Trump ran on a pro-peace ticket and explicitly promised no new conflicts abroad. And I've made this point many times. There is no Trump rally anyone can find me on planet Earth that happened in Trump's run-up, this last candidacy or campaign, where the rally is chanting, no nukes for Iran, no nukes for Iran. Bullshit. They said no new wars. And to act as if Trump saying no nukes for Iran somehow magically trumps the mandate that the MAGA base gave him, which was no new wars, is insane. We didn't vote for Donald Trump to tell us what he thinks America should do. We voted Donald Trump in to listen to what the fuck we said and what we want for this country to do. And it's entirely flipped around, and Trump is saying, actually, I don't give a shit. I said no nukes with Iran. Who cares what? I don't care about the guys who voted me in. I'll do whatever I want. I'm in now. Not villainy as that, but you might as well spit in my face at that point. And then step 4, and the final step. Manipulate and gaslight people into supporting another war in the Middle East for Israel, the deep state, and the military-industrial complex. That is what is happening right now. And they went right ahead with it. They went right into regime change. They didn't even try halfway trying to pretend or lie for a little bit. We went right to regime change, and Trump's just going to post on Truth Social and act like this was what everybody wanted in the first place. So is probably Charlie Kirk. So is more likely pretty much all of the bootlickers who nonstop glazed Donald Trump. The sycophants, if you will. And then we're just going to move along as if this was always the plan. And me, you, and everyone else will get brushed along underneath the rug. You dirty, disgusting Nazi anti-Semite. It's predictable, huh? Very predictable. And the screenshot in question is this. From Dominic Michael Trippi, another pretty good account online. Let me open this in a new tab. You can see it better. This is a screenshot. This is from 5 decently large accounts on X. And they all say the same thing. The talking points have been given. If you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. Okay, I guess I wasn't. Guess I was America first and you were Israel first. Wow, glad we cleared it up. Sucks that it took me this long to understand that Make America Great Again was just slang for Make Israel Great Again. Or do whatever Israel fucking says. I wish man, that just went right over my head. Here's Gunther Eagleman, right? Mr. Reply Guy 1.0. Literally worst follow of all time on X. If anybody in this chat's following him right now, leave the stream. Gunther Eagleman writes, if you are upset that Trump took out Obama's nuclear facilities in Iran, you were never MAGA. It goes on, Val, if you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA in the first place. We move on to Baron Trump news page. I may upset a lot of people with this, but if you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. And then whoever this Giordano, Bruno, probably some crypto Jew, if you're no longer MAGA because President Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. Now, I did see somebody at the very end there, the Dark South say Poole is a coward. Then is one person I'm curious because his forte is anti-war. That is like his singular, like number one thing. If Tim effing Poole sits here and defends Trump's actions of what's happened here, I might spend every day for the rest of my life that I breathe oxygen on this planet hate watching Tim Poole's entire stream from 8 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. I will pay for his members only content just so I can hate watch such a scummy, slimy, Israel first lying snake. But let's give him some grace a little bit. Maybe he'll back off. Maybe he will find some small strain of humanity and go, we shouldn't blow people up. We don't need to be putting American military in harm's way. I hope so. But, I would be shocked if he did. Now, the one thing I really wanted to highlight too as we get to this, because we did have Thomas Massie and Donald Trump, that beef is reaching a new level, right? They're about to start yanking their shirts off and fight in the street. At least you would hope Thomas Massie would win. But we actually have JD Vance spitting in her face. And so what I mean by that is I have a short clip here. This is from the account Isnt, who is decently solid. I've seen a couple of their tweets here, actually. And this is what we have here. I'm not even gonna read the quote. I don't know if anyone's seen this video, but I want you to listen. We can play it a couple of times, but you have to listen. This is someone metaphorically spitting, hawking a loogie down your throat while they hold your mouth open. That's what this is. Listen to this video.
And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives.
Dude, hey, get out. You go find a very tall building and go find a bridge. I'm kidding. But this is insane. This is literally insane. Every other president was dumb, guys. Or not. Trust us, bro. Like, dude, I like, what currency of trust do they think they have to expend with people, right? Like, right? Like, I don't understand. Bro, I don't get it. I don't understand, man. But here's the rest of it. Here's the other 15 seconds.
So this is not going to be some long, drawn-out thing. We've got in. We've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program.
Dude, do you hear this? We set their program back. Now we're working to further dismantle their entire program. So you mean probably strike them more. Further involvement beyond what the strike was last night. He is lying through his teeth. This is actually pretty solid. I got to give it to him. He's pretty good at speaking, but this is very solid political double speak. He's good at it, and I do fear that heavily for a Vance presidency in 2028 because I do not trust this guy at all, not even in the slightest.
Over the coming years, and that is what the president has set out to do.
Over the coming years, listen to this.
Over the coming years.
Let me go back even further. Listen to this full statement here.
Long drawn out thing. We've got in. We've done the job of setting their nuclear program back. We're going to now work to permanently dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years.
We're now going to work to further dismantle that nuclear program over the coming years. Am I supposed to take that as if like Iran's not going to retaliate? We're going to peacefully walk into their facility and dismantle it over the next 2 years? Or am I supposed to take this as we're going to have continually coordinated strikes till we hunt down all over Iran, trying to figure out where they're hiding the enriched uranium that's gone beyond 60%, as well as the centrifuges they pulled from Ford now earlier? And I'm just supposed to trust you at this point. I mean, it is ridiculous, dude. This is ridiculous. What am I supposed to take that as if you're setting your sights on the goal to further dismantle Iran's nuclear program over the coming years? What am I supposed to take that as? Not a war? A one-sided conflict? I'm supposed to believe that Iran is just going to lay down and let us just walk in willy-nilly while we destroy their armaments? We de-arm them. We disarm them as a population. We make them bend the knee to the foreign country that hates them. It's insane, man. And to make it matters worse, like, just look at this tweet, dude. This is from Liam McCollum. I actually followed him because Dane McKnight pointed this guy out as well. Also, I do see that from Datter. I'm sorry, I can't say, I don't know how to say your name right. I know you said you're Danish. But she said, seriously, no other Asher Logos fans in the chat. You're missing out, folks. He is the best pro-white content creators ever. Asher Logos follows me. I'll show you on screen here in a little bit because I was curious. He must have seen Project Esther or something because he followed me out of nowhere. But here's this on screen, right? From Liam McCollum. I follow him. He's good friends with Dan McKnight, or at least they follow each other, I believe. I think they know each other. This is a statement from JD Vance. U.S. is not at war with Iran, but at war with its nuclear program. Liam McCollum quote tweets that and says, Japan is not at war with the U.S., but at war with its ships and planes. We are at the literal bottom of the barrel. We are scraping the wood so hard, people's fingernails are bleeding to try to find a way to spin what is happening right now as if it is all going according to the plan. We're not going into war. This is not going to be some large, downstream 20-year conflict we just started with another country. Insane. And now let me look this up because I want to make sure he still follows me. Maybe I'm not pro-white enough. Yeah. I'm assuming this is who he talked about, Asher Logos. He must have saw some of my YouTube videos. He found me somewhere. But yeah, follow him out too. He's got some really good takes. 76,000. You know, I'm unsure if he's in like the bathysphere or not. I don't know him that well, but I have seen a lot more of his content. For anybody who's unfamiliar, I did see somebody say made a point of that. But everything I've seen from him seems pretty cool. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Always generally am. Maybe I just got to start with the assumption that everyone is hates me because I'm a white Christian male, and then I would have an easier time moving forward from that. And here's some of the last bit of stuff I want to cover, because I do got to sign off here soon so my wife can put my daughter to bed. The potentiality of Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz. Now, we do have conflicting information going back and forth. You have some people saying that it would, only 5% of American oil supply would even be bothered by this. You have some people saying at least 20% of global supply. You have, again, conflicting information of like, that's 90% of China's oil supply. That's 10% of Chinese oil supply. That's 7% of Chinese oil supply. So it's about like, a lot of mudslinging there. The reality is that is one thing that they are going to be pushing for. Not sure how much it will stand up for, because the reporting that I've seen showing that the Chinese propagandists are actually trying to distance themselves. I say Chinese propagandists, it's just like a loose term. A lot of the Chinese media writers, looks like they are trying to quell some myths that people might think that China is going to immediately come to Iran's aid. So maybe on that end, Iran may fall down and then maybe not shut it down. But this idea that like they would shut it down for everybody when they'd probably easily just shut it down for Western, right? Like let China come through, but turn everybody else back. Like, would that be so hard to do? I can imagine the Strait of Hormuz doesn't have like some massive bridge that appears out of nowhere. It's probably just having military ships in that area that push them back. At least I would think. But who am I? I'm just some, dumb white Christian man in America. Who am I? And that's, with the Strait of Hormuz. And one other thing I wanted to go to with Bill Mitchell, this raging lesbian lookalike. Put it on the screen here. This guy's insane. If Iran tries to block the Strait of Hormuz, Trump will destroy their entire navy in about 5 minutes. So that's where we are. And that's exactly what I said at the beginning. We are in a position now where everyone's saying we're not at war. They're just retaliating to our retaliation from their retaliation. From that one time that we retaliated to the retaliation from when we struck them, and then they retaliated from here. But we're not at a war. We're just going to brag about absolutely bombing their whole navy off the face of the earth. We're not at war. Come on, guys. Friends just take each other's navies out of, offline all the time. Right? I blew up my friend's house. We're friends, guys. Come on. Is that an act of aggression? Like, you have to be so, again, weaponized retarded. Like, you are violently retarded if you believe this. Violently. And I'm telling you right now, I'm distancing myself from anyone who still claims MAGA after this. I do not believe in no bullshit QAnon 8 deep plan. Miss me with that. You are actively absorbing as much willful ignorance that you can muster to pretend and avoid and evade the fact that you were lied to. You fell for it, and a politician is wiping their ass with your tax dollars and sending it to a foreign country for a war we have no business being a part of. I am not playing around with it anymore. I want to avoid it anymore. I have been forever radicalized to a position that I will never come back to. I should have listened to Nick in the first place. I should have avoided all of the naysayers who are just a bunch of bitch-made men who have no idea what the hell's going on. Forever let the world remember that Nick Fuentes was right, and everyone tried to do everything in their power to say that he wasn't. He's gay. He's gay. He's gay. I watched that video like 40 times, at least 50 times. I know it was Nick's dick that Destiny was sucking. Leave this chat if that's how you feel. I do not want you here. I want you to take that retardation out somewhere else. Anywhere else but here. I'm done. I'm entirely done. I want America to be the nation I was promised when I was a 10-year-old. I want America to be the nation that I can believe in for my daughter. Not one that I fear in my dying breath 45 years from now, hoping to God that she does not have a, worry about being raped by, the multiculturalist society that we are trying to establish. That's where I'm at. And before I do sign off, though, I got a couple more minutes here, guys. One thing I will actually go to is Thomas Massie and Trump getting into it. This is where we're at, man. So Trump put out this big truth. Essentially, he puts out this big truth, but even beyond that, Trump is starting a MAGA PAC to primary Thomas Massie. So instead of just it being words now, it looks like there's a MAGA PAC that Trump is building to try to primary Thomas Massie. I'm going to be the most vocal supporter of Thomas Massie from this day moving forward, that it might get a little annoying, that it might get a little obnoxious. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. But here we are. Here's the first post, actually. I'll go to this. So this is from, forgive me. I gotta switch screens. Sorry, guys. So this is the that account that has all the followers that has that contract to post all these Truth Socials. But here it is, and I'll make it a bit easier to read, actually. I'll read it in a very fancy voice. So this is from earlier today, just before 2 p.m. This is from Donald Trump. Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, and doesn't respect him. He is a negative force who almost always votes no matter how good something may be. He's a simple-minded grandstander who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have the highest level nuclear weapon, while at the same time yelling death to America at every chance they get. Iran has killed and maimed thousands of Americans and even took over the American embassy in Tehran under the Carter administration. We had a spectacular military success yesterday. No, you didn't. Taking the bomb right out of their hands. And they would use it if they could. But, as usual, and despite all of the praise and accolades received, this lightweight congressman is against what was so brilliantly achieved last night in Iran. Massie is weak, ineffective, and votes no on virtually everything put before him. Rand Paul Jr. in parentheses. No matter how good something may be, he is disrespectful to our great military and all that they stand for, not even acknowledging their brilliance and bravery in yesterday's attack, which was a total and complete win. Massie should drop his fake act and start putting America first. This is extreme gaslighting, by the way. But he doesn't know how to get there. He doesn't have a clue. He'll undoubtedly vote against the great, big, beautiful bill, even though non-passage means a 68% tax increase for everybody and many things far worse than that. MAGA should drop this pathetic loser, Tom Massie, like the plague. The good news is we will have a wonderful American patriot running against him in the Republican primary, and I'll be out in Kentucky campaigning really hard. MAGA is not about lazy, grandstanding, non-productive politicians, of which Thomas Massie definitely is one. Thank you to our incredible military for the amazing job. Yada, 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 yada. Saying that he himself, Donald Trump saying he himself is going to campaign against Massie in person himself as the President of the United States, making a trip to Kentucky to do that. Talk about having your priorities entirely messed up. And also, Thomas Massie over Trump every single day of the week, every single second of every hour. Thomas Massie over Donald Trump. Miss me with that, dude. So I have a clip from Thomas Massie from Face the Nation. That'll probably be what we sign off on, guys. I want to make sure that I do highlight this little bit from Cassandra McDonald. Always remember, this is why Thomas Massie is hated. He is not owned. He is one of probably two politicians in the entire Congress anywhere on this planet that is not owned by the lobbying corporation, group, foundation, firm, lobby, AIPAC, or Israel. And never forget, that is who drug us into this war. Never forget, that is why nothing ever happens. That what we need to have happened, why America's interests are never served, is because all of our politicians for the most part, serve interests that are not America's. So here's Thomas Massie on Face the Nation. This will be the last video I go ahead and play before I'll probably pull it up to the cam, and if anybody who has any kind of final questions or any kind of final chats, I'll run through a couple of those. 9 minutes long. I'm not playing the whole thing. We're going to get a couple minutes in, and then I'll go ahead and go to some of the chat there. But here is Thomas Massie giving a statement earlier this morning on Face the Nation.
Welcome back to Face the Nation. Democrat Ro Khanna joins us from San Francisco, and here in studio is Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie. And good morning to both of you gentlemen. I'll start with you, Congressman Massie. You know, I know this is an unlikely pairing. You are on completely different ends of the political spectrum, but you both worked on this war powers resolution to prohibit U.S. forces from engaging in hostilities against Iran without authorization from Congress. The president just blew right past that.
Well, you know, I think I represent part of the coalition that elected President Trump. We were tired of endless wars in the Middle East and tired of wars in Eastern Europe. And we were promised that we would put our veterans, our immigration policies, and our infrastructure first. And so what Ro and I did, we did this last week when, you know, they were rattling the sabers because we saw this coming. We put forward this war powers resolution. I've teamed up with Ro Khanna before on this, to his credit. When Joe Biden was president, we tried to rein in the executive and reassert Congress's authority, sole authority, to declare war and to engage or authorize the engagement of acts of war.
Something we talked to other lawmakers about as well in the Senate. I know there's efforts to support you, but the Speaker of the House, who is from your own party, has really rejected this. He says the Article 1 power of Congress really allows for the president to do this. It was a limited, necessary, targeted strike, he says.
Well, he's probably referring to the War Powers Act of 1973, but that's been misinterpreted. There was no imminent threat to the United States, which was what would authorize that. And I think that's peculiar to hear that from the Speaker of the House. Look, Congress was on vacation last week when all this was happening.
You haven't been briefed on any of the
We
details.
haven't been briefed. They should have called us all back. And frankly, we should have debated this war powers resolution that Ro Khanna and I offered, instead of staying on vacation and doing fundraisers and saying, oh, well, the president's got this under control. We're going to cede our constitutional authority.
And that's really the crux of it. You know, I think, you know, highlighting the reason, or, you know, what would be the reason that Trump would be impeached? What was the rationale, were he to be impeached, were it to even come from anybody? It would be because he is in violation. Now, obviously, many other presidents are in violation of that. I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon. But, you know, this is partly why, or really why, the work that Dane McKnight does with, forgive me, defend the guard and bring the troops home is so imperative to be passed in all 50 states. Because if we're not going to be able to get Congress to at least be able to do what is constitutionally supposed to happen, right? Which is not unilateral declarations of war, but that Congress has a say in it as well. What we at least have to do is hamstring them somehow, which is what Dane McKnight is doing, which is state by state putting in state legislation that makes it so that without a declaration of war from Congress, the National Guard can't be mobilized. And that seems to be the game we're going to have to play. Now, largely Donald Trump is just mad at Thomas Massie because he's unwilling to sit there and ball wash like everyone else is, and good for Thomas Massie and good for Rand Paul. And good for anybody who's willing to say, like somebody said in this chat earlier, good for anybody who can say and admit they were wrong and go, dang, I was entirely wrong. Never again. This is our never again, right? Right? This is the World War III version of never again. Never again are we going to listen to politicians who are absolutely cucked to Israel. That's our never again. And so with that though, I am going to get ready to go ahead and sign off as it is a little bit past 10. Don't go yet because I'm going to start going through super chats, or not super chats, chats in general. So forgive me, sorry. But let's go ahead. I'm going to grab these and we'll go through them.
DS Knives says, a real man can admit he was wrong. It's fight or flight now. Muslims hold grudges like no other.
Yeah, very true.
The Dark Soul says, multiculturalism was the worst thing to happen to America. Thanks, LBJ.
Yeah, I think that actually one of the projects I will be looking forward to doing after the dispensationalism project, I'm going to do a project called Freedom of Association. And I would really like to highlight how here in America, because of the Civil Rights Act, they took away and destroyed our right and freedom to associate with who and which we please to. That would be one of my next projects that I would really love to explore. Let's go here.
Anthony Tony says, Massive is the only American first congressman.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple, like him, Rand Paul a little bit. I'm a little curious of Rand Paul, and I do think MTG, for whatever reason, just like she's up and down and left and right, and sometimes she's in a good spot, sometimes she's in a bad spot. But if we were being minimal, yeah, I agree. It's Thomas Massie.
Rando user says, Trump is a traitor.
Yes, he does not serve this country. That is for sure.
The Dark Soul says, I'm sending this live stream / video to other servers, spreading the word.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that very much. Let them know we're at the end. So when it ends in 5 minutes, you're like, man, that was a very long stream. That's funny. I do appreciate that very much, Dark Cell. Thank you. I do actually agree with this.
Carsazilla says, careful with Massie. The Uni Party always has someone for you to cheer for. See Bernie and now see Trump.
See Bernie. Bernie was co-opted. I do still, at this point, do find it weird that there's not, the thing that really struck me as odd was when Thomas Massie's wife passed at the most inopportune time, right? I really don't know if I can buy it, the coincidence there. That for me makes me think, if that would have happened to mine, you would have heard me talking about it. I wouldn't have just ignored a possibility that could have happened there. Not saying I know anything for sure, but I would have expected a lot more of that. And that by itself just makes me think a little bit that it's maybe he is just like that. And you can never be too sure.
Mouse Utopia Dystopia says, Massie is a legend. He is the Ron Paul after Ron Paul.
Which is kind of sad because Ron Paul has a literal son named Rand Paul, who's just not as good as Ron Paul. And it's wild because Ron Paul's pushing 180 million years old. He needs to go be put in a sarcophagus here soon. And he still has better takes than the majority of people you can agree with, or, you have in the conservative media space. Let me find another one here.
The Dark Soul says, it's unfortunate that Republicans got taken over by neocons. OGCONS got off decades ago.
Yeah. Yeah, the paleoconservative movement essentially died. Was destroyed, really. And you can kind of see some of the remnants, coming back, obviously with people like Andrew Wilson and, a few others, and largely, with what Nick Fuentes pushes for too. You can see the remnants of it, but, even those kind of, basic principles of nationalism and what that would mean, because we are so beholden to the post-war consensus, and the mythos of what that is. This is why we are, not moving towards those things. Forgive me, my brother just called me. I'm not gonna be able to answer it. It makes me feel bad. Let's move on here. Yes.
The Dark Soul says, like and subscribe, everyone.
Yes, make sure you smash the like button. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, guys. And let's go here.
House Leotardo says, Lee Zeldin voted to enshrine gay marriage into the Constitution.
I'm going to be honest. I think Lee Zeldin himself is gay. I'm just going to be honest. Just from when I look at him, I get gay vibes from him. I think he's gay. At least I do.
The Dark Soul says, what's your opinion on the Nephilim / Giants / Bigfoot, AtlasThugged? Serious question BTW.
I believe in the Nephilim. To what extent? I really couldn't tell you. I couldn't go into any legitimate depth with you. The most I'm really versed with it is just like the series that Joel Webben did with Right Response Ministries. I've seen bits that, go to where it was Afghanistan, I believe. And they talk about, there's like these reports where, these soldiers were fighting a giant, this red-haired giant, and that's supposed to be a story in the Nephilim. I think a lot of podcasters talk about it. I guess I would just say I don't know enough to give you a strong yes or no or any kind of comprehensive or sound answer, if that makes sense.
Datter AF Danevang says. He called out APAC handlers. A few months later his wife Diesel from Turbo Cancer COH incidents?
Coincidence? I've never heard that before. That's a good one. I like that.
Tix Bomber says. I don't agree with his view on gay marriage. But that hardly makes him a non-mega politician. When he's put the people first his entire career. What's more America first than that?
It's true. It is true. The reality is obviously I don't like, Thomas Massie and Paul's kind of, they're a bit more of that open border libertarianism, that big L crap we don't like very much. What I would say is, especially for right now, when we kind of have the evidence, the circumstantial evidence is on the table, where Thomas Massie might be the only one who's not, beholden to this kind of large, puppet mastery, in the back end, the deep state, the global, whatever you want to call it, who cares? We know who it is. Now, I'm kind of in the position of like, you got to take what you can get. Now, hopefully we can kind of convince Massie to hold a stronger viewpoint over, over marriage. That's something we could work on. I think he'd be willing to hear us out on that. Maybe not, because he is very principled, but it could be something we could work towards. But I really don't think that you can take, you can really nitpick to that level when we're losing this bad, at least on the surface is what it seems.
Emma Majors says, I'm a 70-year-old lady. I'm so unhappy with DJT No War.
Well, thank you, Emma. Thank you very much. I am honored that you found my channel and you're not watching Fox News. I do appreciate your ability to go to YouTube instead of watching the cable TV. But yes, and I'm sure there are many women who are, in that same bracket as you that probably are just as disappointed as well. Maybe less so, because I do largely view the older generations to being a bit more captured by this kind of Zionist idea, much of what we saw Ted Cruz unable to even articulate why he holds such a fervor for this belief that he couldn't even tell you what the scripture came from for. But I am very appreciative that you're in here. So it's nice to see you, Emma. Let's see here. Let me find a couple other ones here. I'm going to find somebody that I haven't picked on yet here.
Antice Yop says, MTG is a tough one.
She is. And the thing that I don't like about Marjorie Taylor Greene the most, for one, is she's a woman in politics. Women shouldn't be in politics. Second, she's obnoxious at that. She does not command a gentle and kind spirit. She's a very masculine female. But beyond that, she did not have a very good, personal life, right? She's like involved in all these affairs. She was having affairs with like these weird pansexual, like gym guys, cheating on her husband. Like, sure, she might have good political rhetoric, but I don't think she's somebody that anybody should be looking up to in terms of a role model for how they should structure their lives, especially not females as well. But I will give her credit where it's due when she does stand up and go against the grain and go against Trump. I do appreciate that. And again, I'll take what I can get.
Greg Watson says, they had blackmail on Matt Gaetz. That's how they got him out the way so easily.
Yeah, and it's kind of curious how vocal Matt Gaetz has been against, this Israel-Iran conflict. But yeah, I would encourage people to dig into that as well. That's something that I remember reading about maybe like a year or two ago, around the time when he was running for AG, and I can't remember who was covering it in detail. But again, if you trace it back, it seemingly falls back to, again, another blackmail operation, scheme, etc. And there you go. All of a sudden, Matt Gaetz, we got something on you, man. Can't go. And I believe it was like in connection to like his supposed relationship with like minors that he was paying on Venmo to have relations with, like, or maybe it was prostitution, something like that. You know, that was enough to get him out of there.
Mouse Utopia Dystopia says, Civil Rights Act was not necessary to end Jim Crow. The 14th Amendment was all we needed. But the Civil Rights Act prohibited private discrimination.
Right. And, you know, and this is something that I don't think is spoken to at much length, but definitely should be, which is we should have the freedom to associate with and who we please, especially in the private sphere, on all ends, right? This goes to housing, right? As much as people don't like it, I should be able to discriminate against anybody for any reason at all, especially if I am the landlord, right? Who's like going to be deciding who I'm like accepting into these certain places, and being barred from turning people down for specific reasons is again proof that you do not have freedom of association in this country. Let's go here.
Greg Watson says, House Leotardo, unfortunately immigration is a necessity when your population isn't replacing itself. We have to promote kids and family to get rid of the necessity of immigration.
I get the argument. The reality is at the rate that's happening right now, we're not going to be here for very much longer. Especially if we stay on the same kind of social trajectory that we're on. But you are right in the aspect that if we entirely remove all immigration, will we be able to have sustainable, birthing rates, so that we don't have like these extreme kind of situations going on? Like, for example, when you go to like Social Security, the way that's building up and the way the birthing rates have kind of fallen, we're going to have more younger people paying into it than old people receiving it. And like that on its face is not how you should have your society operated, right? Like the old should be giving to the young for building towards the future, not trying to, you know, send as many boomers on cruises as possible. That should not be how the money is spent. And again, this kind of goes back to like the generational wealth and all the gaps that kind of fall along with that too, as well. And just the overall kind of, you know, replacement of which is, you know, is happening to us. It is, you know, very, very unfortunate. Now, let me get back to one of the other things here. Do a couple more chats, guys. I apologize. I'll make sure my wife's not going to kill me when I leave. Okay. I do agree, though. Gay marriage is not America first. And, you know, I would do anything in my power to make sure that we could get rid of it entirely, and not have it enshrined in law, and move marriage to a better position, especially as it pertains to like housing it back inside of like the church and it not being a governmental operation, not being a no-fault divorce type thing, all that stuff. I heavily disagree with that too. I agree with Andrew Wilson's viewpoint of it and the way to, you know, structure how marriage should be operative. Or mechanically formulated and decided upon, adjudicated, all of that. I agree with Andrew Wilson's assessment, which is largely to say that should be back under the church's, you know, under the church's purview, not the government's. That I do agree with that largely. Yeah, here's House's argument. Back to that.
Says, why do we have to maintain a 330 million plus population? If we had affordable housing and better paying jobs, we can start having bigger families like the boomers were able to do.
Yeah. You know, there is that, right? There is that side of it, which is the overabundance of the population part of the reason that's holding us back? Right? The scarcity of resources, the overabundance of the population. You know, is there a good idea of what's the right word? Is there a good idea, like what is the best, you know, what is the ideal population of America, right? Does anyone have that formulation, right? Would we get the most economic benefit of a population if we were closer to like, I don't know, 200 million? Or is it maybe somewhere like around 280 million? Or maybe is it like 150 million? Is there an ideal population you should strive for? I don't know. That's something I'd have to put some more thoughts into in terms of the actual kind of mathematics that go into it as well.
Greg Watson says, are they trying to co-opt the term MAGA? I've been saying MAGA, make Iran greater again, to criticize MAGA. No, they are using it as make Iran great again.
Yeah, I think so. I do think loosely probably what they're trying to do, right? So when people say MAGA, they get confused, and people think when they say MAGA, it'll just be paralleling what Trump is saying. Again, it's all this kind of semantic stuff. It's the same thing that, again, right, the left has been, it's what everybody said the left was doing, which was destroying definitions, removing the correct ideals, replacing them, the semantic arguments, the attack on language itself. And that seems to be, I would say too, it does seem to be a co-opt, a co-opting ahead of time to get ahead of it. Let me find a couple more here. I want to find a couple of good ones.
The Dark Soul says, AtlasThugged, you like Vincent James?
I love Vincent James. I would encourage anybody, if you have not ever heard of it before, the show, it's new. It's a newer show. I don't know how many episodes they have, maybe only like 20 or so. It's called The Backlash. It is 3 people generally, or it's 4 people, and I always forget the guy who comes in on the internet. But it's David Riley, Vince James, Rebecca, I always forget her last name, and then some other guy. They're really good. It's so basically, if you ever run out of Nick Fuentes content to listen to, The Backlash is a very, 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 very good secondary source to go to. As long as I'm not live, that is. Just kidding. Backlash is really good. They had Jake Shields and Owen Benjamin on not too long ago. And let's see here. Oh, is this about, okay.
Greg Watson says, Candace Owens covered the blackmail. Basically a dude set him up with a minor with a fake ID. Matt didn't get in trouble cause the fake ID. He thought the chick was of age.
This is about Matt Gaetz, so I didn't realize Candace Owens covered it. So it looks like Greg is saying that basically a guy set him up with a minor with a fake ID, and then Matt didn't get in trouble because of the fake ID. He thought the chick was of age. So he basically got set up, right? And that's probably how they do this kind of blackmail extortion, right? It's just insane, man. Just insane. Yeah, that is a good point, Andre.
Andre305 says, AtlasThugged, I was getting SUS when they never brought up Fort Knox again.
I know, they floated it out there. We're going to do something about Fort Knox, and then absolute crickets ever since then, right? Absolute crickets. Let's do a couple more here.
Shep says, you let your wife determine your stream end times? Gay JK.
Yeah, listen, just like Nick says, man, I am a fake cell so that our future children will be real cells. But no, it's because my daughter sleeps like 10 feet behind me, and I can't be allowed her on stream and for her to go to bed at a decent time. I did see this one though. I actually wanted to go to this one, and I'm going to probably make this the last one, guys.
No says. That said, you do still have to maintain an incentive to work until retirement. If retirement sucks, less people will want to work. I do agree overall though.
Yeah, no, I hear this. I do. And it's something that I think about too, right? Because so many, like, when you're thinking about getting something to happen, right? You're thinking about how can we get this thing to happen? You got to think largely and foremostly about what is the incentive structure, right? What will be the carrot you dangle for this? What will make the person go and chase it, right? Yeah, for a cop, right? You have a donut you're going to hold in front of them to go chase. There you go. And I do agree with that, which is if you were to, right, like blow up Social Security, what is the general incentive for people to push through working through retirement? And I think this is a kind of this is where the value set of the average American is very, very different from what I think it should be. And I largely think that the idea of retirement, again, is only, really a first world, like a very, very modern society kind of ideal. But to me, it's a little self-serving. Obviously, I'm not old enough. I'm not there yet. So maybe my thoughts will change on it, but just my thoughts now. And I do kind of think back to like the story, right, where, when Japan's nuclear reactor failed, the old people said, no, don't send the children. We're going to go. Which is we have to rein in and proliferate through our society, again, the idea that what we do in terms of policy, the things that we seek to establish and move towards, needs to be for the benefit of our children, right? For the benefit of our future, benefit for the next generation, willing to plant seeds for which trees shade you know you will never sit beneath. And I think that is a value that has been lost on us entirely. And you see it just alone in the wealth transfer between the generations, right? The loss of it. There's no inheritances. You know, as people got older, they retained more, they kept more. And I do think that, for at least for me, that is something that I would see that we would need to be pushed towards, and kind of rein that back in. But I do agree, there's probably a bit more complexities to that. Not to say like that's the one and done answer, and there's not more to be said about the conversation. I do think it is a good thing to kind of point out as well, especially because we have built this precedent, which is, you know, once you turn about 59 years old, you're supposed to expect to never work again and everything will be taken care of for you. And when you kind of build that expectation in, you make it that much harder for when you're a couple generations down, when you tell that generation, hey, you're not going to have retirement like every other generation did for the past 40 years did. You guys are going to have to work until you fall over. And is that like a sell? And not even mention to that, it's also from the kids' perspective too, which is like, how about instead of kids, like the moment they leave and graduate high school or college, going off to the other side of the world and then never coming and visiting their parents or never having any kind of investment in their family, we need to work that back too. Because, and I know there's a couple people in this chat that do a lot for their parents. That needs to be where we go. Honor thy father and thy mother, right? Have a stronger familiar bond. Make it so children want to take care of their parents, right? You know, kind of rein in the idea of what the idea of family is and what that looks like down the line. Not just years 1 through 18, but years 0 to finish. And what children should be doing, especially in those moments, right? Especially like, how should you be looking forward? You know, are you getting your parents into a single floor home? All those things, and it's just lost on us, right? When we just expect the healthcare industry to take care of a lot of this stuff. But with that though, I'm kind of I'm running out of brain juice, if you will. Hopefully I don't start sounding retarded here in a second. But I do want to say, thank you very much, everybody who was in here. If you want to continue this conversation, I know a lot of you guys are probably, you know, discussing, maybe even arguing in the chat. If you want to continue this conversation, join the Discord. I'm going to go ahead while I'm on screen. I will grab that link for everybody. I will post it in the chat, and stay live for a couple more, maybe a minute or two, just to give everybody a chance to grab that if they want to. So for anybody who wants to continue that conversation, find us in the Discord here in Jar Openers. And again, I will give you a fair warning. This Discord is a joint Discord. So there will be other beliefs in there that aren't going to be everything that was espoused here. So you probably will find people who might not be like-minded. Do keep the argumentation to a level of professionality. You know, I don't want to have, you know, bring people in and have to kick them out. Obviously just be reasonable. Don't be insane. That's all I literally ask. I'm putting it back in here. And again, shout out to Donnie who put it in earlier. So there is the Discord link for anybody who would like to join in as well. Continue that conversation. You know, we have topic submission. There's guest submissions. I'm always looking for people who would be willing to come on to the show, and be a part of the show, even if it's not with me as well. Also do like the Jar Openers. Thank you again, Donnie. Appreciate you, man. And then, not joining the Fed Cord. That's hilarious. Dude, I get that all the time. I get it. And you don't have to, but if you want to. And then the community chat room, we have things with, we have a marriage channel, we have a gaming channel, we have a music channel, pet posts, Christianity, then a couple other ones that gets a bit deeper than that, right? We have the tinfoilhat.com channel, and a bunch of places you can kind of get your ideas out there. A few chat rooms as well too. I believe we have about 50 some members now. I'm not sure in total. I believe we're at like 53, 54, 55, something like that. Looking to build up as much as we possibly can. I'm glad you guys are all in there. And once again, thank you very much. Never forget the people who lied, who brought us here. But I do want to say, Christ is King. Remember who this fight is really against. We got to ban women. And once we get past the JQ, we got to start with the WQ. That'll be the next thing down the line. But ban women, get them out of politics, make women great again, make America only, America first. But Christ is King, man. And I hope everybody has a good rest of your night. I appreciate everybody for being here. And again, for the impromptu streams, I'm always pleased to see them do this well. But thank you guys very much. And I do really hope you guys have a good rest of your night. I pray for everyone's safety. I pray that you don't have, husbands, brothers, sisters, even I guess at this point, who are overseas, who may be afflicted by this. I'm sure there's some fears going on. I know there's only 30,000 people over there, but that's still 30,000 mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters who are worried about what's going on. Pray for them because it's obviously the ball was out of their hand. The choices are made for them. So with that, again, as always, Christ is King. And Spooky Orator, you say that one more time, you will be banned forever. I literally don't put up with Muslims at all. You can get out. But again, thank you very much. Appreciate you all. Have a good rest of your night. And I'll see you next time. Maybe tomorrow. Take care.